What's going on, guys? My name is RagingRaptor and I'm from the Sandbox server right now. And I want to talk about what exactly happened today on the Sandbox server. Because quite frankly, a decent chunk of things happened on it. And the first thing, or the most important thing, is that they changed the HE shells, how they work in game. A quick rundown of it is that basically every single HE shell in the game now has 0 penetration. So they are not able to penetrate anything. It doesn't matter what it is. Second, they are not able anymore to do fires, for example, which is a good thing in my opinion. That's actually a pretty decent thing. They made some changes to their alpha. And they made changes to how they behave when they are hitting different modules in general. I think that 2 changes are pretty decent, like the one with not being able to get set on fire anymore and how the tracing works, like where the shrapnels are going. Everything else is on the level of Rubicon levels of stupidity and bullshittery. Today, I decided to go home rather quickly to just play on this Sandbox server now 29 games, and I played through the German tank tree line. Because for me, it's very important to see if the E100 actually feels better on the Sandbox server because, well, it's a prime target for Wargaming's philosophy of not buffing this tank. Because, well, as you might guess, it's not a strong tank, and we're still waiting for the buff, but Wargaming is saying, oh no, we have to wait for the Sandbox server reshuffle until this tank is going to be useful anymore again. So, now we are sitting here. 2 things I want to point out. If you go onto the Sandbox server and look at each different stats, it is important to note that Wargaming does not look at hash so far. This is why, for example, the Charioteer here has on his 105mm only 2 shell types, normal HE and APCR, no hash as it usually has. The same goes for the FV. By the way, an FV hit me in a turret for like 73 or 173 damage in my E100 when he shot HE. On live server, this is usually around 400. My biggest issue with this change is that it just feels like Wargaming is incredibly disconnected from their own game. Like, it just feels like Wargaming doesn't understand why exactly why exactly everybody started to spam gold rounds. This is something I think Wargaming simply couldn't wrap their head around. And to me personally, and I think a lot of people agree with me, there is that the lack of weak spots in general made tanks or tankers a lot more prone to shooting premium rounds, because in the end, you most of the time don't even have a chance. Best example is Type 5 Heavy. In my opinion, a 250mm weak spot is not a weak spot when the surrounding armor 270mm is thick. Or a cupola, which is most of the time an effective armor of 250, 280 plus, is in my opinion not a weak spot. Not a weak spot having at all is also obviously not having a weak spot. This is why people started to shoot a lot more gold rounds. And this is why, for example, tanks like the Chieftain are so strong, because they do have a weak spot, but it's incredibly hard to hit. So you can't just use herder, double dap the 2 key and shoot for their turrets. Speaking of which, what Wargaming probably didn't anticipate, go fucking figure, is that tanks with no weak spot got even stronger. Congratulations, Wargaming. Kudos to you. In this game, Wooo, this really shitty Russian player, just basically only spammed APCR at me. And even though I also tried to shoot some heat rounds, was most of the time not impossible to do anything about him, because don't forget, the E100 turret is one of the most stupidest thing in the game, when even standard rounds can here and there penetrate it. on the flat surface. I'm not talking about the weak spot up here. So, me having not the best premium round and having a much smaller target to hit at the mouse, where meanwhile he has like those huge flanks to shoot at, made this an unfair fight. Such an unfair fight that he was able to keep on spamming premium rounds without any repercussion, because in the end, and this is very important, which I want to point out, the E100 on the current server has 2,700 hit points. So divided by 490 means that a mouse on average needs 5.5 shots. So we have to round it up to 6 shots to kill an E100 full HP. Now, on the current Sandbox server, you can see the hit points are 3,300. Divided by 490, because it's a gold spamming whore, leads to 6.7 rounds. So we have to round it up again, and we are at 7 rounds. So even though they technically nerfed premium rounds by giving everybody more HP, it's only a marginal buff. Because in the end, he gained also HP. He can still keep on shooting APCR rounds. And he barely lost a dent. Like, he just needs one more shot to finish me off. And this is just stupid. Like, the biggest thing today is that now HE shells do no damage. So, for example, the E100 used to have 930 HE damage, if I'm not mistaken, with 750 alpha. So, getting to shoot at an FV is very juicy at the turret. Now it doesn't matter anymore. Like, the biggest counter to lightly armored vehicles, like FV, like Grille 15, like Rheinmetall Borsig, like Waffenträger auf Panzer 4, like some wheeled vehicles like the Lynx, is HE. And now you are basically stuck. You can say no. You can simply say no. If you like the Panzer 4H, I am delighted to tell you that you should probably just sell this tank right now. If this, not right now, but if this server update comes through. Because the HE gun, which was by arguably the most fun thing about this tank, is now useless. If you have, like, I don't understand what Wargaming is doing. Like, if they think that HE deals too much damage through splashing, through splashing, then Wargaming should go on what? Wiki, English, penetration. Go on to battle mechanics. And scroll down towards the damage mechanics. Scroll slightly up again, if I'm not mistaken. No, excuse me, you can still scroll down and have a look at this formula. If they think that HE rounds which do not penetrate deal too much damage, why don't change things like here? If Wargaming thinks that HE shots deal to not reliable damage, why not add a minimum damage to the HE round? Like 5%, for example. So let's take the E100 again as an example and give it an imaginary 1400 HE gun. So in theory, if you penetrate, you do 1400 damage. If you don't penetrate, well, you do nothing. So let's have a look and make a minimum damage. For 1400, make it 0.05%, so 5%. That's 70 damage. Arguably very low, if you think about it. So if you want to have a minimum damage, if they don't penetrate, you could just add like 5% of the damage. So you have this as guaranteed. And other than that, use a different algorithm, making here, for example, instead of half the damage, like 0.75 of the nominal damage, instead of just half. What makes more sense to me? In my opinion, if they say, if there is a problem on the Russian server where everybody is spamming HE rounds because they're drunk or stupid or noobs, then just change the damage here from 0.5 to 0.75 so they make less damage and give them a minimum damage like we have it with artillery, a minimum splash duration. Give the HEs a minimum damage. So you always have a minimum damage, but it's not a lot. So you know, oh yes, I have 70 damage, I can kill him. 100% of the time. 100% every single time I can kill him. But apparently no. Apparently no. Because for me personally, HE was always either just for shits and giggles. It was just for shits and giggles, to have fun, to troll around. I know there is a German YouTuber which is actually making a career of just playing the E100 on HE only and being stupid about it. But yeah. Other things is, for me, HE usually was a skilled round. Like, for example, or a round when you know, oh yeah, I'm now at the rear of an enemy tank, I should be able to penetrate it. So, for example, if the E100 with its 115cm gun has 90mm of penetration, say 75mm of penetration, I know that I can penetrate the rear of, for example, a Super Conqueror. I could easily penetrate that because its armor there is so weak. And that would be very, very rewarding in my opinion, because I anticipated to be able to get to his rear and penetrate him. It would also make paper TDs again have to think of what they're doing and not just like, it doesn't matter anyway because HE doesn't do any damage anymore. Because that was the biggest counter to lightly armored vehicles. That was the biggest counter to the FV stage 2, in my opinion. Just spam HE and his huge, juicy ass face and laugh while he is on a reload or got spotted. For me, the third iteration of the Sandbox server is an absolute complete disaster, and basically just an example of how disconnected the World of Tanks, the balancing team, actually is from its community, or at least from the game, in my opinion. It just shows how completely out of their mind they are, because the armor rebalancing is not good. It's absolute garbage. Wargaming does not think about, for example, that most players, at least in the German room, and I can attest that as a fact, that most of my viewers are elder or older people, like 30 to 40 plus. I do not really think that those players, all of those players, want to learn completely new hit point values and completely new damage values. I highly doubt that they want to learn this all again. That is a huge deterrent. We still have the huge issue that tanks with no weak spots are getting even stronger. Right now, it is basically, if you play the IS-7, you just have to be a legitimate, brain-dead ape. And that's actually an insult to apes, to play the IS-7 right. Stay, hold down, boom, that's it, you are impenetrable, basically. The turret can basically only be penetrated by a Jack Panzer E100 reliably. If you, for example, play the E100 and shoot HE at him, you do 70 damage. And yeah. Meanwhile, Mr. IS-7 is like the funny Ruski Blyat guy, which can load his APCR rounds and do the same thing with what the mouse did previously. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. And we didn't even touch on the topic of T-49, M4, Sherman, KV-2 getting gutted. Like, those tanks are gone. Like, why should... Well, you can play the KV-2 with its normal AP round, but good luck. It was a meme tank, and I thought it was a fan favorite. Yes, I know. It's like the first thing you will learn. Don't peek against the E100 KV-2. It's... I'm sorry, guys. I don't know. In general, I really hate my English channel. I really do. I really do hate my English YouTube channel. It's frustrating and it's annoying. Quite frankly, because even though my German channel only has 100 subs or 200 subs more, I get like triple to quadruple the amount of views there. I feel more appreciated on my German channel. And it just feels like insanity. The definition of insanity is doing something over and over and over again, doing the exact same thing over and over and over again, and hoping on a different result. That is how it feels for me right now, doing YouTube content on an English channel about World of Tanks. That is how I feel about doing every single update, writing feedback, giving thoughts for wargaming, to maybe implement, to give some ideas, just some random ideas, how to implement things, make things more convenient, etc., etc. You never hear anything, you never know, did it really reach the people? Because in the end, one thing the World of Tanks dev team told me is, when I asked them why exactly is there no international Sandbox super test, they said that most developers don't speak English and it's more Russian focused. Yeah. And with that, thank you so much for watching. I don't know if I'm ever going to do more videos or something about World of Tanks on this channel. It feels useless.